Welcome back to our garden, where I always say we stop the scroll and feed the soul. We oftentimes spend hours in our day just scrolling and consuming, but nothing really sticks. So I hope that the moment where you stopped on the scroll and you're spending time with me here in our garden, we can feed the soul. You might hear wind in the trees, you might hear birds stop by, even a couple of dog visitors here on our farm. But just know that this is a peaceful place where we're all here together, feeding our souls, and we can just be incredibly intentional. And as I always say, as you leave, your nervous system will thank you because I pray that you'll feel much calmer. It's funny because I have been gone for a few days, and when I was gone, there was a ton of rain. And it's kind of how life is. There are storms that pass by, and in the moment you can complain. But I stepped out of my house today and I realized it's incredibly lush, more green than I've seen in ages. And so I'm thankful. The earth in itself needed to be nourished, and sometimes it needs a good reset. And we may not understand why the reset is happening, when it's happening, and it's out of our control. But when we step outside and we're able to look around and we see what the earth needed, it resets itself in ways that you can't explain. But beauty always comes from the storm, whether you realize it or not. And that's just the truth. So I was away for a week, and as I'm back today, this is the most expensive cup of coffee that I've ever had, not because of how much it cost, but because of how much it cost me to get here in my hand. I was away in Bali for work, and I was unable to have a moment to myself because it was just from morning till night, just work. And I'm not complaining about it. I'm incredibly thankful that I'm able to travel a lot. I realized that as of today, I've had 15 or 16 flights in a month, and that's absurd and definitely not normal, but I'm grateful for it, so I will never complain. But in the midst of all of that, I never really had a moment to myself to just ground, to write, to reflect. So on the way to the airport from working and connecting and networking with a group of women, I decided to tell my driver to just drive me around Bali for hours and take me somewhere where I can really feel the culture, feel the soil, taste what, the specific area brings and what it offers. And so he ended up bringing me, his name was Eddie, and he ended up bringing me to a coffee plantation. And at this coffee plantation, I ended up just going on a solo tour and just being able to taste dozens of teas and incredible coffees, touching the soil, touching the land in which created some of the best coffee and teas I've ever had in my life. And as you know, I'm a curator and a collector, so that's saying a lot. And I was able to meet a woman by the name of Koming, and just really connect and ask her questions about Indonesian culture, about how she grounds herself, about how she connects with her family, about how her purpose is so meaningful to her. And that ended up being one of the best parts of my trip. So in that being said, it reminded me about what our topic is today, which is peace is a posture, because regardless of what's happening around you, regardless of how busy you get, regardless of what life offers you, you don't necessarily find peace, and it's not something that you demand. You have to position yourself for it, and it should be a posture regardless of what's happening around you and the circumstances and time, because we all know that time will never, ever stop for you. So you have to be very intentional about creating and crafting an environment and a schedule so that you will maintain your peace and that it will also be your posture. So this cup of coffee is a reminder that peace is a posture and it's a choice we make. Even when life tries to pull us 100 different ways, we can reposition our posture. So this matters more than ever because there's, constant news cycles and we're overstimulated with these dopamine hits in our culture. I really felt like I wanted to speak to that in a different way, whereas everyone's sharing their views and everyone's sharing, this is how I feel about what's happening in the world. There's a time and a place for stating our views, but there's also a time and a place for being intentional about our peace and about our posture and checking our posture. And not only checking our posture, but also acknowledging where we are and why. When I say peace is a posture, it reminds me of my actual posture here today. If you're looking on YouTube or you've been around me, posture is something I've always struggled with for reasons that are obvious. But I have a hard time just slouching, not slouching, I mean. And in that, every once in a while, as I'm speaking with someone or as I'm working, I have to remind myself to sit up, to maintain that posture so that over time I'm not in pain and that over time it doesn't become normal for me to be slouched. And it's the same with our emotions. We have a posture that we maintain and a posture that we keep, and sometimes we don't even realize it. So peace, it must be chosen daily, not waited for. So just like our posture, just like my posture that I struggle with, every day I have to tell myself, sit up, Lauren, sit up, girl. Don't allow yourself to slouch. Even though slouching can become my norm and become my main state of being, it's something that I have to remind myself to shake out of because I do not want that to be my default. I don't want my default to just be slouched. And y'all can check me now that you are aware about my posture issue, my physical posture. You can check me when needed. So whether you're American or a global consumer, we've all been inundated with media, ruffling feathers, pulling you to the literal left or right as to how you should feel. And so opinions and views and emotions, of course, they're essential, but what will keep and maintain you is your posture in the midst of all of those temporary feelings. Because every single day there's going to be a tragedy that strikes. There's no day that goes by that a person on this planet doesn't feel like it's the worst day ever. But the media itself will pull you in a direction where it wants you to be. Every day, miracles also happen. The most beautiful things you can imagine also appear in front of people. But overwhelmingly, we often allow the tragedy to take up not only our head space, but our heart space. So the heart space is something that I've always talked about amongst my clients. And heart space is what is stored, and it's our capacity. If goodness and mercy right now were just offered before you, would you be able to receive it? Would you even have the space to receive some of the positive things that the earth offers you or that people around you offer you? And on the other hand, there's grief, there's rage, and there's hate that shows up at your doorstep. Would you open your heart and would you allow it in? Or would you acknowledge its presence and then you tell it like, look, you can visit, but you definitely can't stay? So this is something that you have to be aware of. You have to be very cautious of what you allow into your heart space. There's a quote, and I'm sure you know where it's from, let's be real, that states, "A good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth good, and an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart brings forth evil. For out of the abundance of the heart, his mouth speaks." So there was a time in my life where I was surrounded by extreme gossipers and complainers and not enough peacemakers, and I guess you can call them go-getters. And I love them the same, but my heart space began to shift due to the abundance of negativity and harmful reactivity that came with those encounters. I had to eventually just check myself because I, too, began to kind of express unnecessary comments about people I didn't even know or situations that were out of my hands and were actually in God's. And as a result, I became just super stressed and hurt at the fault of my own heart and what is received and stored in it. This is all too painful, and it's something that all of us will deal with and currently struggle with today when you have to, navigate relationships, when you know they're harmful. The love that you have is just, deep and comfortable. But I think this is an opportunity where we can decide, do I protect my actual heart space and remove myself? Do I stand up and speak about how I need protection and peace? Or do I stay there and hope things change while compromising my heart space? I personally believe that each case deserves its own intentional decision, and a decision that must be carefully thought about and prayed for. But for me, as I mature in life, I've learned to give up and surrender the things that I know harm me, even if it hurts. I always say this in previous podcasts and just in my daily life, that I'll never change how I show up for people. I just change the access and how much I show up for people. But inherently, who I am will always be kind, will always be generous, will always be loving. But the amount into which you receive and the access into which you will have me will change. And that's to protect my heart, to protect my peace, and to protect my space. The world is similar to relationships and friendships. So right now we live in this world where chaos is in our pocket just 24/7. Whether you open up your laptop or your phone, I can't even take public transportation or be on a flight without people asking me how I feel about what's happening in the world, because it's just madness right now. And I try not to overconsume as a result of that, because these minds that we have, these sensitive, beautiful minds that God gave us, were created to work, to rest, to create, and to actually care for what's within our reach. But we've lost that village mentality and that mindset. Here we are, stressed about things that are 10,000 miles away, but we don't know about what's happening 10 feet away from us. In no way am I saying that we shouldn't care about the world from a global perspective, because I do feel as if we are called to be global citizens of the world, but we're not meant to carry global anxiety, trying to solve just everything at once. We first must tend to ourselves, our homes, our families, our land first. And I mean absolutely first. If then you have the heart space and capacity to expand and go further, then you do just that. If not, it's actually okay to silence the noise. There's an order in which we must honor and a posture we must keep to maintain our sense of peace, because posture allows us to bend, it allows us to sway, but never, never, ever to break. You know, I always break it down from a spiritual perspective, and even Christ himself, when he walked this earth, he even said this to followers and believers and just everyone who would listen, that peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. So peace, as Christ even stated, it's a gift, and it's something that we have to accept and access, not just look for, because it's not circumstantial. There's even a story about how Christ slept in a boat when a storm was raging. And it didn't mean that, he didn't care about people. It didn't mean that he didn't care about what was happening around him and all of the madness. There was just a posture that remained even in the midst of literal hell breaking loose. Because peace doesn't necessarily remove the storm from happening. So regardless of whether you have peace or not, life's going to happen. But it just changes how you stand in the midst of it all. One of my favorite authors and someone that I read from is Thich Nhat Hanh. I hope I said that right, but he is an incredible writer, an incredible philosopher, and he always used to say that peace is every step. So every inhale, every exhale, every breath that we take, it can be an act of peace in itself. And it's not because the world is perfect, but it's because you position yourself differently within this world. You protect your heart space, like I was saying earlier. You store what keeps you, not shakes you. So both of those teachings from Christ and from Thich Nhat Hanh remind us that peace doesn't just show up at our doorsteps. We have to cultivate it. We have to practice it, and we have to posture ourselves towards it. This is why what you consume daily matters. And when I say consumption, it's not just what you eat, it's not just what you drink, although that's definitely part of it, but it's also what you watch, what you listen to, what you scroll through, and the conversations that you entertain. Because everything that we consume, it either feeds or starves our spirits. And if you don't pause and check in, you'll end up just spiritually malnourished. It's insane how much we are always consuming on a regular basis. And our minds, like I was saying earlier, are just not meant to do it. Our nervous systems and our anxiety and our depression is literally higher than it's ever been. Although mental health is incredibly important and we have more resources than ever, we have more people meditating, we have more people that are intentional. But for some reason, our nervous systems are just breaking down. And I won't even say it's for some reason, because we know why that reason is. And it's because we're not meant to digest this much chaos. And that's why you need a daily sacred moment. If you go to my Instagram right now, you'll see a reel that I made not too long ago. It was actually yesterday. Well, if you're listening to this, last week. And it's all about creating that daily moment in time. So I'm going to invite you all to do this for your peace in the midst of all the madness. A daily sacred moment doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be 5 minutes of silence. It could be having a devotion. It could be stretching for 15 minutes and just focusing on your body and how you're feeling. It could be a cup of tea that you just sip slowly and that you're incredibly thankful for and that you thanked God for. It could be a prayer. It could be a journal entry. There are a million things. I know one of the things that grounds most people in the world is even walking, because we sit at desks, we sit at tables for so long now. We sit inside. We don't get sunlight. We don't get fresh air. We don't come to the literal garden. You're here with me listening in the garden. But where is your garden that you can go to? Find it. It's important, because those sacred moments, they shouldn't be an afterthought. They need to be a daily step, and they need to be a habit that you perpetually participate in. All this to say, consumption literally shapes our posture. You don't just wake up and have an incredible posture of peace. You don't just wake up and have an incredible posture of love and light. It's nothing you just like wake up with magically. It honestly shifts based on what we are looking at, what we're viewing, what we're listening to, what we're eating. So for example, if you listen to music that is always chaotic and violent, it will most likely shape your views, and it will definitely change your sensitivity. You'll see and hear about violent things. Even being in America, you hear about people getting just hurt, and it's sad, but you just hear it so often that when was the last time you actually paused when you heard some bad news and you prayed about those families? And not just prayed, but you figured out ways to help. There's also like the food or the substances that we consume, whether it's caffeine, whether it's drugs, that they alter our state of mind. So we have to choose wisely. So what you consume, if you know that it's going to alter your reality and alter your state of being, be very mindful about what it is that you partaking. Because your baseline, and I mean your absolute baseline, without food, without drink, without music, without experiences, without relationships, without people around you, your baseline when you're all alone, when you're sober and there's nothing and no one influencing you, it should be peace. But the only way for your baseline to remain that way, to remain peaceful, even when you're sober-minded, even when you're all alone and you have nothing or no one surrounding you, you have to be mindful of how you nourish yourself. I actually have a rhythm that works for me. My mornings and my nights are crazy. Like, they are such routines that I have kept for years. And if you've stayed with me, if you travel with me, if you live with me, you know I do not play about my mornings and my nights, because I know that even though I can have one or two or maybe even 3 or 4 nights or mornings that are a little off, if compounded and happens day and week and month after month, where my mornings and nights aren't secured and sacred, it affects my mental health, it affects my spiritual health, it affects everything around me, and it affects my posture. And it reminds me of when I was young. I used to try to sleep with my parents, and I would just run and try to go inside of their room. And my mom was very, very, very adamant about her morning routines, and she did not play about her rituals. So when I would go in her room in the morning and I would just try to lay on her and talk to her and convince her to do certain things for me, go give me a juice box, go give me a snack, she would make me participate in her morning routines or her morning rituals and how she connected to our Creator, because it would set the precedent, it would set the whole tone for her entire day, and she didn't want to compromise that. And if I didn't want to participate in her routine with her, I had to leave. So that reminds me what my mom used to do, that we have to be this way even with our heart space. It's like you have to kind of ask people, or even ask yourself internally, if they're not with me, they gotta go, or I gotta go. Or can I consume this without it altering my baseline? If not, it has to go. So where in your life do you need to check your posture today, this week, and even just throughout the rest of the month? And to ask yourself, is this something that I need to let go of? Because is it affecting my baseline? Is it affecting my posture? When I'm sober-minded, when I'm alone, the things that I've had to eat, the things that I've had to drink, even if you participate in recreational drug use, or if you participate in anything that alters your state of being, when that is removed from your life, how is your baseline? How is your peace? That is how you know where you stand in regards to your posture. When you are aware and when you're mindful and you do this continuously, eventually you get to a space where no matter who or no matter what you're around, peace, it really becomes like breathing. Like I said with Thich Nhat Hanh, and one of his beliefs is how it begins to just ooze out of you. And then as a result, there's a ripple effect when people are in your presence. So when you hear that phrase, peace is like a posture, just know that it's contagious. So when you hold it, you bring it to your family. You bring it to your friendships, you bring it to wherever you work, and even your online presence. It's something that people should know about you. It's nothing that should be hidden. You cannot hide peace. You know when someone has a peaceful presence, you know when someone has a peaceful aura, and you yourself know when you're at peace. You know when you're faking it, and you know when it's real. Because the truth is, you're not just consuming the world on a daily basis is consuming you. You just may be the actualized peace in the midst of chaos. So in my book, Compose, The Art of Directing Your Emotions, there's a chapter, one of my favorite chapters, that's about how the real flex is staying calm when life isn't. So I'm actually going to take a moment to read a little section from it because I believe it perfectly resonates with what we're talking about today. People gravitate toward calmness in chaos. They trust the one who isn't rattled by circumstances, who doesn't get pulled in every emotional storm. Why? Composure signals something we all crave: safety. I learned this the hard way. Over the years, I've had people look at me, sometimes with admiration, sometimes with skepticism, and they would say, you must not have been through much. They act as if peace is only possible for the naive, or that composure is the result of privilege, not practice. As if healing has to be loud, it has to be messy, it has to be public to be real. But they don't know the choices, the sacrifices, the silent battles, the prayers on my knees in the dark when I'm alone, the discipline. Even the nights spent alone, not because I had zero options, but because I refused to settle. My story is the one of constant tragedy, but that does not make it any less meaningful. Some people learn through destruction. Others learn through observation. Some people repeat cycles. Others are called to break them. And breaking cycles, that requires composure. So this is a short podcast, but I just want to remind you that for every 10 people panicking and screaming from outrage, there's one person who stays calm. That's the person everyone looks to. And that person could be you. Because let's be real here, your peace, it's super magnetic. Your peace, it's leadership. Your peace, it's power. Your peace is your posture. It's the quiet force that commands respect and makes people feel safe, and it keeps you in control when everything around you is spiraling. When life is happening, when you turn on the news and it looks like the world is literally falling apart, when people are losing loved ones, when there are genocides happening, when there are incredible, uncomfortable, disgusting, vile things happening in our world, can someone call on you? Can you be alone with yourself? Then maybe peace isn't your posture. And it's okay. It's something that you can work on. It's something that you can cultivate. But here we are in this garden today, and we're feeling peaceful in this moment. You're feeling peace even overtake you right now. I don't know where you are, but maybe you're feeling something up your spine. Maybe you're feeling something in your spirit. Maybe you're feeling something in your heart become warm. And just know that that's peace knocking on the door of your heart. But you have to accept it. You have to receive it, and you have to let it have a home within you. And the only way for peace to make a home within you is not only for you to just receive it, but it's for you to be mindful of what you consume. Yes, you can listen to what's happening in the world. Yes, you can listen to a little tea, a little gossip from here and there, sometimes, but it should not be the norm. Yes, you can help the world. Yes, you can be a citizen of the globe and know what's happening in different parts of the world. But before you can address what's happening in the globe, we have to address what's happening around us and within us, because that is the most important thing. And that's what will maintain legacies, maintain families, maintain communities. So let's get back to not only a village mentality. And yes, there are some bad things that can come with only thinking about self and the ones that are directly around us. But most importantly, when we take care of ourselves, when we take care of our families, and we take care of our sphere of influences, that in itself will go out and create global change. So don't feel as if you're not knowing about what's happening 10,000 miles away, that you're ignorant and you're just, not tuned in to what's happening, because that's not the case. If you're tuned in to what's happening within you and you're tuned in to the people around you, that is the best thing you can do with this life that you have. So let's take this week to practice posture, to be and create the peace that's a gift we can all access. We just have to receive it and care for it like the most precious present you've ever been gifted, because peace is your inheritance. And let's be real, after this podcast and after you really looking within yourself again, it's going to become your posture.